We're founded in 1997. This is our blog is our chapter newsletter. Subscribe to it. Doesn't cost you anything. Don't have to be a member. We don't ask you if you are or whatever to join it and get it. And we get really interesting announcements like the Leave No Trace training opportunities. We post that for the county. We post those, and the Native Orchid Society's got a photo contest coming up. That's been on, lots of stuff of interest. And then plus our meetings, our field trips, and germane opportunities. We do it better there than we do anywhere because we have a fabulous, fabulous webmaster, and Pat Donica. We have a YouTube channel that's very good. I have people that tell me, oh yes, I've watched all of your YouTubes. Oh, good for you, Facebook and Instagram, we communicate with you pretty good there. We're not the best at posting, but we're going to get better. So, tonight, after the program, we're going to honor those that get a pin this year. And these are the ones, I'm sharing this with the virtual audience also. And those of you that are here in person, we're going to pin you, hopefully with no blood drawn, after the Zoom meeting. So, but we got 5-year members and 10-year members. I think Gail is here with us. And then we have some 15-year members. Oh, look at that, Randy. Finally going to get a pin. We have some 20-year members. And then we have 25-year members. Agnes has already, yes, Agnes is our charter member and she's already gotten her pin. And then we have some lifetime members. And I think, aren't you a lifetime member? Yes, okay.
I've got my pin already.
She's got her pin and whatever, but she is.
The state chapter.
The state. Oh, it's not a lifetime member of our chapter.
It's not our chapter.
Oh, so you're appreciated by the state, but not here at home in your own chapter. Okay. I think I'm ready for our speaker. Our speaker is Gary Bowers. He was our past president, immediate past president is Randy, and then before Randy was Gary Bowers, and he was always, when I first joined, he became president shortly after Terry and I joined, and his talks were always wonderful. It's wonderful to visit his yard, and he's done do-it-yourself landscaping, and he's going to talk about that. He gets requested every year when we send out the survey. Who would you like to hear speak? Gary Bowers. And in 3 years, we haven't heard him speak. So when he announces this morning he has COVID, I'm like, how sick are you? I don't want to be the one that has to do a program at the last minute because they're looking for Gary Bowers. So anyway, okay. Erin, who is our fabulous Zoom director. No.
Let's see, you need to mute.
You need me to unmute and unshare. Oh,
Yeah.
He's already shared. Look at that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, Gary, I think we're ready. Let's see if
Okay, are you able to hear me okay?
Yep.
Was it a yes? Okay. All right, awesome. Yeah, I gave Beth a little bit of excitement this morning when I said, oh, there might be a problem tonight. But so far, so good. So we'll see how it goes. I did abbreviate the presentation a little bit, both for myself and because I know that you all have snacks that you need to get to, which I'm sorry that I'm missing out on. So what we'll do is we'll go through this sort of short presentation about what we have going on here at our property in Round Rock. I'll give you a little bit of background on the land itself, talk a little bit about I guess some of the tenants that we have when we approach things, and then we'll go from there. Is the audio still okay there?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, great. All right, so the details for our place. This was a home, it was a subdivision, it was built in the mid-80s. We are on just a little over an acre, so it's larger than most of your subdivisions that are being put in now. At the time we thought, oh yeah, this is a perfect size. But when you start trying to put mulch down on 1 acre, that's quite a bit of mulch that you have to spread. The the land itself, we're east of I-35, so this is Blackland Prairie, very heavy, dark clay, about a 1.5 feet down, and then after that you get this sort of light-colored, compressed, loamy, rocky sort of stuff. Um, I didn't look up the history of the land. I probably should have done that, but it was probably an old cotton field based on the things that were around here during that time. A couple of things of interest. The front of the house faces west, so that was a really wonderful job at putting all of those windows right into the evening sun. There's no HOA, so there's some things we're able to do that we don't have to have discussions with other people about. And I know some of you are going to really hate me for this, but we don't deal with deer at all on this side. But we do have to cage things, especially when they're young, because we have more rabbits than anybody could ever have. So this is one of the early shots of the place when we first purchased it. Maybe just a little bit afterwards, because that has the updated roof on it. But what we're starting with in the front yard here is a Chinese pistache, some Lantana Camara. I call this the Arizona ash bush. If you cut them down but don't do it properly, then you'll get a bush. Some Bermuda grass. That was new when we moved in, so they made sure to do that for us before they handed off the property. And then the front yard is Keen Ranch bluestem with a couple of mature crepe myrtles, and then a lovely idea of putting 3 red-tipped photinias as a foundation planting about 2 feet from the house. Didn't realize how big those got until a couple of years later. So that's where we started there with the front. And with the back, this looks so much worse now that I'm looking at it. We had 4 Bradford pears along the back. There were 5, but one of them had not made it through that summer. That was the summer of 2012, I believe. That was 100 days over 100 degrees. So a lot of them got taken out. There were 2 mature Chinese tallow trees, and there's another one back there that we'll show. We also have this really wonderful view of the neighbor's garage. So super nice. And then the previous owners had left us a propagation area for sow thistle, nice and gated off so the rabbits couldn't get in there and eat any of it. And then there's that other Chinese tallow tree, which I'm sort of a new beekeeper as well. Some of you know this. That is apparently a really wonderful thing for honeybees, but not really for anything else. All right. But there are some little bright spots back here. There's a fairly mature southern live oak, for the age of the property. And then we're just going to say it's a Shumard, but we've got some, call them Austin red oaks, some sort of mix. So our approach overall, for the way that we like to think about new plantings and the landscape itself, is focused on no irrigation. We don't want to run irrigation lines and have that established constantly. A move toward lawnless yard. So as much as that is possible, we do have septic. So that'll be an area where there'll always be some sort of lawn. Focus on native perennials that support wildlife, but we do make exceptions for herbs, veggies, and fruits. So things that are not invasive, or at least not invasive on any lists yet, and that humans are able to take advantage of, as well as for the herbs, especially the bees enjoy those. Provide water sources, and that's not just to provide that water for the wildlife, but so we can also watch that wildlife. And we'll have some photos and things in a little bit for that. And then improving the soil condition. One thing that you can see pretty quickly with some of the clay is that as it dries out, you'll have these huge cracks. The way that I was taught is when you see the cracking in the clay like that, it lets you know that there's probably a low amount of organic material in that. And thinking that this was probably farmland, that makes sense, as that organic material would have been reduced over the life of the farm. And then ease of maintenance, which is really what ties in with the native plants, is there's not a lot of work that we have to do for these once they get established. Right. So, and this is something that we also talk about in the NLCP program, is where I picked up some of this, is you want to identify some of your zones. And I'll have a little overhead view for you here, but we have a septic tank and we have drainage fields, so that's probably not where I'm going to plant a live oak if I want to keep those things. We have these west-facing windows, and so there's things that we want to do about that to ease the heat in the summer, especially now. That lovely neighbor's garage on the other side, we want to take care of that. And then I really want to be able to look out the windows, whether that
Hey, Gary, hold on one sec.
Oh,
Sorry.
sure.
We can't hear him very well.
We're having some problem with the audio hearing you.
Okay.
Part of it, I think, is because he's sick.
Yeah. She said part of it's because you're
And
sick.
he's not as animated as he normally is standing in front of a crowd.
Yeah.
We've got-
Maybe if I speak louder, is that helpful? Was that better?
Yeah, and enunciate more, and I think that will help too.
You get tired and sick, and just don't say, sorry, folks, that's it.
Yes. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. So we want to be able to identify the zones. So there are different things that we want to take care of in the landscape. We've got the septic tank and the drainage fields, so we'll work around those. We have our west-facing windows, and those, we get a lot of heat that's coming in through those, and so we'll address that. We've got that neighbor's garage that was really attractive back there, so we'll just kind of hide that a little bit. And then really like to be able to sit inside and see that landscape from whether you're sitting on your sofa or looking out your kitchen window. Like, try to think about what it is that you want to see in your landscape once you're sitting inside. And then we're also vegetable gardeners, so we'd like to have those things coming back inside so that we can enjoy those. They're not native plants, but they're also not escaping. Don't have wild tomatoes getting out and invading nature preserves. Could be interesting. We've got some pathways that we're going to establish, and we'll talk about water sources and how those work. So one of the great things that if you can find a plat for your property and you're kind of planning this out, you can really just do some little sketches like this and try to at least get a rough idea of how you want things to work. And you see we've got our septic fields here, so that's a place that is a bit blocked off. We won't be planting any trees or shrubs there, but we can certainly try some small native grasses and as well as some smaller perennials. Then we have this view that you would be able to see the neighbor's garage. We'll talk about how we've addressed that. Then we have this area where we want to keep open and sunny because it's where we're going to have veggies and a lot of herbs. And then something we haven't even done anything with to this point is this future pathway just straight out to the road. And we have a ton of sun coming from this way, and it hits the house pretty great. There are these kind of bay-like windows, and they're some of those are really perfect for letting the sun right in. So thankfully, Google allowed me to be able to do sort of an overhead view. And this is a relatively recent one. And you can see I pretty much focused on the trees and highlighting which trees we had put in. So we've got two that were established that was in a previous photo there. We have that live oak here, this 3, and then this 4, which was that Shumard. There's a new volunteer live oak that came up really close to the house that I think we're probably going to keep at least for a while until it looks like it's going to be too close. Sue and Randy really loved one of the first things that I did, which was how close can I plant bur oaks to the house? That's what all of these 2s are here. And then recently I noticed a squirrel had planted another one for me here, so there's actually a new one coming up. So we'll trim those out a bit as they get more mature. But right now we're just trying to get some shade established to block that sun during the summer. And then further out in the yard, and these are relatively new, we've got some cedar elms that were placed here, also trying to create some shade from that direction without being directly on top of the house. I like to plan around the trees, so I tend to plant those first and then go back through and plug in the understory and then the things that would exist in a woodland area underneath those as we go along. So it's just kind of in general what we're doing there. Now, if we talk about some of those issues that we were addressing early on or that we had and how we addressed them, the fastest way that you can hide something visually is build a fence. Now, that is maybe a fairly expensive option, with this being about 1.1 acre. That fence from corner to corner there is about 250 feet. So it's a fairly long fence, and so we did it in little sections. And what we're going to do now is we're going to, the next few will be standing in this corner back here, looking down that screened area. So the fence goes up, and then frantically have been planting screen plants there for a little while. The fence came afterwards. She said it's a little expensive to do that. We've got this ash juniper here, which I found at one of our plant sales, which was great. It's hard to find those for sale. Go dig them out of people's yards. We got a hackberry that's a volunteer. We've got a bur oak here, which was also a volunteer, and another one. So lots of squirrels and blue jays will provide you with 3 plants, often oaks and pecans, at least in our yard. Starting to put in some of the understory trees now that there's some shade back here. So we have wafer ash. There are a couple, these are improved pecans, and I can't remember which one's which right now. Texas mountain laurel. So trying to have a little bit of evergreen back here as well during another amusing thing for those of you that get to visit the property. We have the largest brush pile in the world. Because we were clearing out so many things, it was just easier for us to pile it up. And then that became a fairly good habitat for lots of different critters, lots of lizards, lots of rabbits, and new this year, we have an armadillo. And he or she or they are constantly plowing in this mulch, which is both irritating and amusing at the same time. For the front, how we're kind of hiding from that sun is with the lots of deciduous trees. So we went through, this was probably my first native plants purchase at my very first sale at the Wildflower Center, where these bur oaks, minus the one that got planted by somebody else. And then we had a volunteer prickly ash, which I've actually been very happy with. Not only is it cool that you can chew on it and your whole mouth goes numb, but it is, when it blooms, it is covered with both honeybees as well as other native small bees. So it's a really great plant if you can find it. They don't get super tall. Maybe this one's one of the taller ones. There's the two species. One's more shrubby that you think of as finding in the Edwards Plateau, and then this is the more taller one that you usually find more towards East Texas. Alright. Now for some of the fun stuff that you get to find, we we do use a lot of the Native American seed, and I tend to buy their Blackland Prairie mix almost every year, and just kind of keep distributing the seeds to kind of keep that, start building that seed bank back. And so these are some of the outcomes of that are, we've got lots of horse mint here. You've got Indian blanket, Giardia. Um, you get a lot of the Texas star. Those pop up quite frequently. And all of these plants are inviting more things into your yard than just that giant front yard that you saw initially that was filled with KR blue stem. With the Greg's mistflower, you are able to attract lots of queen butterflies. Now, since we don't irrigate, we don't get a whole lot of Greg's mistflower because it does like a little more moisture. We introduce the water sources, and for us, these are just fairly simple bird baths, different little, what do you call them? Little tanks, little rubber things that you buy to feed your farm animals. We kind of distribute those and put them around. These are some of the girls getting the water. This is from this summer, so it's been pretty hot for them. And then the bunnies will also go and find the water source. And a lot of times people ask me about these corks. These are to keep the honeybees from falling in. It gives them something to grab hold to and climb back out. Now, things happen in nature, so you're a lot of times we tend to think of our landscape as being something static, but it's not. Change happens all the time in nature, and if you're talking to average homeowners, sometimes they don't understand that. Well, I put that there and I expect that tree to be there forever. That's not going to be the case, and it wasn't the case with this Arizona ash that was broke in half and created a giant mess. So just kind of go with it, and it gives you an opportunity because now this ash tree wasn't taking up that space, and this is what we put in its place. Is now we have a fairly heavily planted area with the fall aster, and there's tons of things on here that I didn't even label. But this is cupgrass over here in the corner, and that stump for the tree is just behind here. And there's some kidney wood that we've gotten started. This is Mexican buckeye back here. You can see some goldenrod over in the corner back here, and then can't see it super well. It's right over here, but there's some Greg's Dahlia. I guess I should have put one of our tenants is a large variety of different species. So that's what I like. And then, you'll get some wonderful successes, and then this happens. So we had two really beautiful Weesach that are no longer with us due to the winter storm. And this also had to be cut down and made into a mess as well. But with that, you learn what plants are able to survive. This is standing cypress, and then that following spring, once everything cleared up, no problems at all. You can see I still have some south thistle in that propagation area. And it really makes this a very lovely walkway. You're able to go through here and watch the hummingbirds. All of the windows in the front face out that way, so you can watch them. We'll say arguing about who gets to nectar from all of these. Then I would also suggest you get these beautiful wildflowers, but I also really find it very interesting when those wildflowers are finished with their blooming period. We leave this in the backyard there because I find it very interesting. I think it's very beautiful to have these buff colors, and the seeds are there for next year. So try to enjoy your successes. Know that there's going to be some challenges as you go along. And if I were to have any like words of wisdom, is don't try to bite off an entire acre at once, which is what we did initially. Divided it now up into little small sections. We work on a small section until we get it established the way that we like, and then we'll move on to another area. When we initially started, I had little plantings everywhere, and it was very hard to keep up with and keep them weeded. So now we just work, get an area established, and then move on from there. If you are interested, I have started a list on iNaturalist for all of the species that we have. I think we're up to 104 that I've recorded, and these are mostly the big ones, the obvious things. I'm not, if some of you on the field trips know, I'm not great at identifying those little T90, to use Sue's term, plants that are growing in the front yard. So things like Venus looking glass, that sort of thing, are not going to be on here, but they are here in the yard. Well, that was the abbreviated kind of update. This will change every 5 years or so, probably. So if there are any questions or things that you weren't able to hear quite well, let's address that now.
Okay, we got one question from Brandon. Can you hear me, Gary?
I think so, yeah.
You're muted, so, and no, don't unmute or we'll get that sound. Me. Go ahead.
What I want to know is, did he just put mulch on top of his grass?
Did you just put mulch on top of your grass?
That's a really good question. So did I put mulch on top of the grass? We do a modified version of sheet mulching. I initially started diving in and do the whole thing like the lasagna bed, where you put something green and brown and green and brown, and you do that for 4 or 6 layers. And with the amount of plantings that we have, that takes too long. So what I do now is I put down a tiny bit of compost. I put down cardboard. I save all my Amazon boxes. I'll raid dumpsters. A little tiny bit of compost on top of that, and then 4 inches of hardwood mulch, and that sits there for at least a season before I poke holes in it to plant new things. And that has been pretty successful for us. It definitely smothers the KR blue stem. Sometimes we'll get Bermuda grass come back through that. And I will be completely honest, there are 2 things that I will use, chemical weed killer on, and that's Bermuda grass and poison ivy. So those are the 2 things that we make an exception for that sort of thing on. That's a very good question, though.
Poison ivy. Tyson has a question.
Have you ever used expanded shale mixed into your soil?
Have you ever used expanded shale and mixed it with your soil?
We don't. If I'm planting a plant that isn't truly native here in the Blackland Prairie, think of Weesatch. We have some yucca. then I'll add a little bit of decomposed granite as I'm doing the backfill. But usually I just backfill with some type of compost that's commercially available. Mushroom compost, whatever is the cheapest, organicest at the time when I'm shopping.
There's a question on the Zoom from Pat Donica. What did you put on your septic field?
Right now, we haven't started planting that. What does happen is we get Indian blankets are creeping out over top of it, and then they KR and silver blue stem, which just happens to be there. My plan, and I got this from Sue's idea, is she has a lot of frog fruit across the top of hers. I'm going to start trying frog fruit, some of the smaller native grasses, and just kind of test that out a little bit with the understanding that I might mess something up. But I will be careful.
Any other questions in here? Anybody need any clarification that you didn't hear quite, that you'd like to go over again?
Okay,
The Zoomers are real happy.
thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Gary.
All right, you're very welcome. Sorry I couldn't be there with you all tonight.
We're going to transition our audio back over, so they won't be able to hear you
Probably
anymore.
owe you some plumbing. Okay, I think we're done. Thank you, virtual attendees. Some of you have volunteered to do some stuff, and believe me, I have taken note of it. So we are going to say goodnight to them.